Hello, and this is Broadening Your Horizons. I am sat in my house and decided to do a kind of a Romecast, as Neil Kramer likes to put it. Neil Kramer is a philosopher and a thinker, and been listening to him today, and he often does just a talk to the microphone. I don't know whether he just does it in one piece or separate. But today, this one's just going to be in one piece, and he just free flows the talk to the mic and talks into the mic his ideas of the time and at time about specific subject that is relevant to him or relevant to the world. Doesn't really matter. Today, I went to a group, a group about public speaking, looking to improve my speaking skills and to the public at large. This is gonna quite a mellow kind of way of speaking, really free flow. So at the moment, I'm thinking off the top of my head is quite challenging for me, especially at night. Just about to go to bed, but I thought I had a few ideas to share. So yeah, the group was kind of inspirational in a way. Just the way it was set up was quite structured very nicely, and the people give a few talks ranging maximum is about 7-minute talk about a subject that they can choose, or sometimes it's chosen for them. It's kind of an on the spot talk like this, and I think sometimes it's actually important for one to explore speaking to other people. And, we tend to have a lot to say to each other, but never really say anything meaningful in everyday conversations. So when you have more of a serious setting, it's really good to share ideas. Whereas if we muck around with mates, although that is relevant and important in one's life, sometimes it's important to be serious, but humorous at the same time. I'm not necessarily one to joke about all the time about just about life, unless I'm in the circumstances of my friends. But this circumstances, it'd be kind of very difficult for me to joke in this kind of format. So kind of the topic today, or topic that's really I've been thinking about, is empowering yourself. This idea of that we need to take control of ourselves, and this idea isn't necessarily a new idea, or it's something that a lot of people have tried and failed, and a lot of people have succeeded, and many people are making money out of it, and careers out of it, and a lifestyle out of it. And we always, I think every single one of us, part of us, seeks to learn to a degree, and that degree is kind of within their own reach. They can conceive of where they are, but really kind of want to change tone in some ways, and bring this all back to the beginning, of life, of who we are, and in order to kind of give clarity of empowering yourself now, really to give a ground base route of where to go in the future, and that ground base route is really what life is about. And for me, life is essentially a it's light and darkness. We have day and night as prevalent, but we also have a light and darkness within us. We have a light humor and a dark humor, and humor generally is classed as being more light than seriousness. And we have anger, which is classed as more dark anger, but you can have a humorous anger as well, which is it can be more of a slapstick acting type thing. But but we have various different degrees of emotion, which to me essentially boils down to this light and darkness. And within the whole human psyche, we have light and darkness. Light affects us all, and we all emanate from light. We don't emanate from darkness. It's quite known within the out of body or near death experiences in more kind of paranormal subjects, that people tend to when they're dying or when they're having these out of body experiences, they tend to see this tunnel of light before they die or before they think they're going to die. And some people say, it's to do with your retina within your eye accepting and just digesting the light that's left over or around you. But I also may be true on the scientific level, and a lot of this does boil down to science. But also you have the pineal gland within the brain and kind of the center of the brain, and this is known to emanate light, and life. And I read a book recently by the author of Anthony Peake, and it's called The Infinite Minefield, and it's a really good book in terms of kind of esoteric ideas and exploration, and he looks a lot into science as well, and it's about this, our life, our bodies, and really he came to the conclusion that needs more exploration, scientific exploration, that DNA, well, first of all, that DNA kind of is known to be older than the Earth itself, which leads to the conclusion that life on this planet was seeded elsewhere, and life is far older than this planet itself, which kind of makes sense. I mean, life doesn't just necessarily come from nowhere. Like, something needs to seed that life, which is kind of where I move on to the next point, which is birth and life itself. We all came from a seed, and that seed was a sperm and an egg. Sometimes that production of 9 months, the kind of sacred 9 months, is a very difficult experience for a lot of people. And I think now, with ever more kind of toxins and various different frequencies and energies around us that are negative and in some ways dark, they are affecting a lot of birth rates and birth repercussions now. Although we've got ever more increasing better technologies to deliver the births themselves are kind of having complications at this time. I mean, yesterday there was a news article saying, I think in Britain, where I come from, the birth rates are at a 40-year low, meaning that the percentage of falling of birth rates has been the lowest decrease in 40 years. We go through ups and downs in terms, nothing's ever straight line, so you kind of expect that, but And in other ways, when you look at society, you've got these different ways of these different. I've lost my train of thought, but so we have this birth, and once we're born into this world, and we're very open to senses. We're open to the environment, and we're very vulnerable. But at the same time, we're very kind of ignorant. We don't know a lot. If one ever thinks of life reincarnations, or I'm not 100% sure whether that's true, but I'm open to that idea. Quite open to that idea of life reincarnations or reincarnations of another energy, and we're never given this knowledge, but we're given instincts, and instincts are this kind of this code of how being comes about and being is. So going back to the idea of DNA, we have this code of instinct is kind of within our DNA. Although DNA changes over our lifespan, DNA essentially still gets passed down to our children, and we have a kind of a basic code given by our parents, and our environment is hugely important on building our DNA in our lives. Science, to begin with, dismissed DNA, and then it said, "Oh, DNA is the most important thing," and it is. But and it said that it is the only thing that kind of builds life, but kind of biologically. And this is kind of a it's not a holistic, I can't think of the word, approach. It's very fragmented or approach to science in a way that thinking that the people who research DNA or that specific field of science, they don't really have a holistic approach to the body and consciousness and everything. And but I'm saying science in general and academia, they tend to think of a lot of science is actually they believe in very non or materialistic science. They believe that everything is physical, so everything has to derive into a code structure called the DNA. And the DNA is a lot of it gets referenced to the Matrix, the code of the Matrix, and things like that. So we have this. So when we're born, we're really open to the environment, and the relationship with our mother and father grows, and we grow with them, and they grow with us. It's not necessarily as one-sided. We only grow, but they grow with us as we're being born, and their love and their affection. If there is love and affection, but most of the time there is kind of this wholehearted love for the child. And as that child grows older, that love hopefully grows with the being of you or your sister or whoever. And being a family is the most important thing of being human in terms of a group of people. In terms of your individuality, that comes actually later. Individuality doesn't come to a lot later in life, and although you have your individual character. I mean, I've just got a niece of 1 year old, and she's starting to have individuality now because she's becoming more aware of her surroundings. But what we define as a person now in society, in terms of how we interact, we're expected to have a lot more. Well, there's a lot more expectations than there are with a 1 year old, because they can only do so many things. But we kind of lose. And this is what kind of I'm building up to. kind of lose this freedom of expression in terms of not really just interacting with the world and not having any expectations. Today in society, we kind of have a lot of expectations within mature people and even teens. And it seems as though as soon as you reach about 5 years old, now the expectations now just expand exponentially. You're expected to do what everyone else can do, and it's not necessarily based on the individual. It's based on the group as a whole and kind of a class of people. And this kind of national curriculum of saying, oh, well, everyone must do in this specific set of education standards instead of having a more diverse range of styles of education and styles of being an individual. But a lot of this also boils down to time and the pace of life. The pace of life of babies is very different to being the pace of life of a teenager, to the pace of life of a young adult, and all the way up to being a middle-aged and elderly person. The pace of life actually quickens. When you're a child, you experience things a lot more slowly. The pace of life isn't as... Because there's no... I think it's one of it is because there's no expectations of you being a child. You're just a being, or you're interacting with the world, and you necessarily don't care. Like, you don't know that you should care. And we kind of, when you grow older, and you're expected to care, and I think that's right in some way. And so the pace of life, when you grow older, you look back and you can't believe where the time has gone, because you're so absorbed with life. And kind of what frustrates me is a lot of older people now, or kind of middle-aged people, they're moaning about working or moaning about life, and they think that possessions and career aspects and all these things are the most important things in life. But kind of what I want to say is that it's not. The most important thing in life is you and your surrounding people. You principally, and the surrounding people secondary, and then offshooting there to the people who you can reach out to, because luckily with Facebook and things like this, you can reach out to a lot more people virtually. But although we don't necessarily have physical contact, but physical contact is absolutely crucial. I mean, if you ever had this idea of bringing out a baby virtually, it would be insane. And so the creativity of children is incredible, and I think we lose a lot of that as we grow older. And unless we strive to be creative when we're older, we will just dwindle and when we retire, because we don't have that creativity and drive to go out and do stuff. And a lot of retired people just sit in a care home, or their brain just shuts down because they're not using their brain like there was when they were younger. So some of it's to do with physical being, but a lot of it's just to do with the mental capacity of a human being. And human being within itself is called being, and for a reason. We're not just thinking creatures, we're feeling creatures, and we have this interaction with everybody else is really interconnected. in terms of our growth, and our culture and religion and society really can encroach on somebody but liberate them at the same time, because the expectations there are, okay, you have to join this religion because your parents are part of a religion, and you have to be part of your heritage, and that can be really empowering to you as a human being. The person that you was, let's say, well, we're meant to go through the cycles of about 7-year cycles, and so you can say that 7 years ago you wasn't the same person that you are now. So from when you were 0 to 7, you can say unequivocally you're not the same person as you was when you were born, and you can say that for a fact. And also from when you're 7 to 14 and 14 to 21, you can say that you are a totally different being, and you interact with the world totally different to what you did 7 years ago. I mean, you can totally transform yourself in just a year, let alone 7 years. But this 7-year cycle is known to be this more kind of esoteric level of it's kind of the building blocks of life, really. And but to be this being that self improves, you got to be aware of it. You got to be aware of self improving. I think for the first 7 years, you don't really do a lot of this introspection of looking within oneself to better oneself. We do this more organically, and I think as we grow older, we shy away from this organic nature of growing, and we kind of look at growing as more of a systematic, analytical, right-brained way of doing it. And I think that's more to do with our culture at the moment. We look at things more analytical instead of creatively just being inspired by the world and using our intuition right. And this is really what I think should kind of finalize the topic of just when we all want to learn, but to different degrees. Speaking to a person at the moment, and although he's not very educated, he learns through his children, and he's got wonderful children, and he is learning, but through himself, through his children. But he's learning about himself through his children, and I think this is an amazing thing that he is able to unconsciously do this because his children are acting out of this, this way of interacting with the world without using rational thought. Not undermining rational thought. Rational thought is really imperative. I'm trying to use rational thought now to put across my point of being creative. And so really life is a balance, but life isn't a balance. It's not a straight line, that balance, and it's more of a circle. You start at one point, go to a different point, and another point, and another point, and we kind of work in cycles, and we might not necessarily arrive at the same point, but we will change and evolve in a different way. And think of it more as a wave. I'm speaking in waves at the moment. Frequency is a wave, energy is a wave, everything acts in the waves. Light is a wave. Light and darkness is a wave. its frequency of energy and how we interact with the world. So instead of resisting the wave and trying to force it in a particular direction, the only thing, the way we can do and the way we can interact with life is to just go with the wave and go where the wind blows, to help look within oneself. And the more we do this, the more we go with this wave, I feel as the more we'll arrive at a destination that we won't have thought of. Because we cannot predict the future, and no matter how much we plan, we'll always arrive at a destination that we least expected, or that we never thought of those 7 years ago or 14 years ago. When I'm a lot older, 14 years' time, if I'm alive, 7 years' time, I hope to be a different person than I am now. I really do. If I'm not a different person within 7 years, then I've done something wrong, and I need to address that and make sure that I am a different person. And this goes all the way up to when you die, or die and move on to a different energy form. There is no death as such. Death in the term that we see it in mainstream. The idea of death. So I think this is important to know kind of what death is and what we're moving towards, but at the same time, we only interact with the world at the present moment. It's only at the present moment that we can actually do things. So try and be more creative at the present moment. Try and be more positive, and try and be more you can be rational, but use your intuition more. So I'll end it here, and thank you very much for listening, and if you have listened all the way to the end, and I will catch up with you soon.